Ain't no sleeping till Hollywood. Ain't no sleeping till Hollywood. Hollywood, yeah.
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the No Sleep Till Hollywood podcast. We're not sleeping until we make it in Hollywood. And while we're up, we'll be discussing the state of the industry and, of course, our place in it. It's me, one of your co-hosts, Ayanna Costley, and I'm here with my other co-host.
It's your girl, Galen D. Smith. And today we are here to talk to you guys. Honestly, it's going to be like a little chit chat, okay? There's a lot of good television that's going on right now. Ayanna and I watch a lot of the same stuff, but we also watch different things. Mm-hmm. And so we are going to be talking about the shows that we are currently watching. So the episode is Now Watching. We each picked two of our favorite current shows, and then we watched at least one episode of the others if we hadn't already seen it.
The first show on my list is The Vince Staples Show, which is on Netflix. As the name implies, it's a show by Vince Staples, but also created by Ian Edelman, who worked as a writer on the movie Intergalactic on Netflix.
That makes sense.
With Maurice Williams, who also worked on the same movie as a writer for Netflix. So this is a half-hour scripted comedy with kind of like these Afro surrealist moments. The show is only 5 episodes, and I've been watching a lot of Vince Staples interviews from his press run, and it seems like Netflix may have more coming. The show was kind of written and filmed for these first 5 episodes to come out. So I'm hoping that the show got all the views it needed to let the second half, whatever's supposed to come in, be renewed and come out. So that's exciting. But the concept, essentially, this is the log line that they put out. It says, kind of famous and sort of rich rapper and actor Vince Staples navigates the challenges and surprises of everyday life in his hometown of the beach, or Long Beach, California. The show is also based off the web series from 2019 of the same name, which I've been noticing, like a lot of the shows we've been talking about this season so far have this formula where some version of it starts as a web series and then goes on to a big production company, a big network, which is really cool. The show is semi-autobiographical, so it's kind of based off his life. And I'm sure like a lot of the jokes, a lot of the scenes, like, yes, they're heightened to be funny or to be more dangerous or whatever, but it's very clear that a lot of this is inspired from his own actions and who he is as a person. The show's also sarcastic, and like I said, it's surrealist, which means it's basically dealing with the surreal or like the absurdity of Vince's life now that he's kind of famous, kind of rich in the show. Like, he's playing a version of himself. And when we think about like surrealism and like what does absurdity means, it's like, what's the craziest thing that can happen in this moment that really isn't that crazy? And I feel like this show hit that tone on its head. I will say, when I first put the show on, I was so excited for it to come out because Vince Staples is one of my favorite rappers, favorite artists. And I remember watching the pilot and kind of being confused. I was like, what is happening right now? What is on my screen? And I can't say that was a good thing when I first watched.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which I don't want, like.
Because I had the opposite reaction.
Yeah. I was just like, huh?
I watched the entire thing in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Because only, if you watch it, it's like an hour and a half. Like, you literally watch it.
90 minutes. You can watch it in one sitting. But when I remember putting on the first episode when it first came out, and I was like, I'm gonna have to come back to this because I kind of went into the show blind, which I do for a lot of movies and shows. And I don't think, I was expecting this surreal, this like sarcastic or like sardonic tone, which it does work. It works really well in the show. But the pilot episode, I feel like, moved a lot slower than I went in expecting. And so, and I also remember thinking like, dang, this is kind of like Atlanta, which a lot of people were saying when the show first came out. It wasn't until I was like, you know what, let me take a quick break and come back to it. So the next day I rewatched the pilot and I watched the second episode and the third episode, and I kept going. And I was just sitting there in awe, like, nah, Vince Staples, he's one of them ones. He is truly one of them ones. You could tell he put so much into this show and into this craft. He wrote, I don't want to say all the episodes, but he wrote a lot of the show.
I think he wrote all of them technically, but I think some of them were co-written. But like, I
think they were co-written, right, by Maurice Williams and maybe also Ian. But I felt bad once I got into the show. I kind of felt bad about my first brush opinion because I like kind of like wrote it off. I'm like, this is like Atlanta. This show is so different from Atlanta. Yes, this show is like falls into the vein of like the rap genre. Like you have someone doing this. This is about my life. I'm a rapper
Yeah.
now. So Atlanta kind of falls into that. The show Dave also
I'll
falls
say
into
Dave,
that.
yeah.
But I feel like this show is unlike those shows. It has a really unique
Or even
tone.
like rap shit.
Rap shit, exactly. But this show, the Vince Staples show, it's unique in that we're focusing on Vince's everyday unique experiences. So I think episode 2 is like this bank robbery episode, and it's
That's
literally
my
like
favorite episode of the whole
that is
thing.
my favorite
I think
episode.
episode 2 and episode 3 for me were the top episodes.
Yeah, I wish the season, and this is why I said like the pilot, I had to rewatch it to appreciate it, but I wish the show started with the second episode because that episode is so strong and it's so tight. And I feel like nowadays we don't shows and creators don't have the luxury of like starting slow
You can't do a
because
slow burn.
you can't because I saw someone tweet I saw this girl tweet, "Oh, I can't get into the Vince Staples show. Like the first episode, da 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 da." And I had messaged her back, like, "Watch the second episode, and I'm telling you, you'll be hooked." And she was like, "I am so sorry, but I can't do it. Like I gave it the 30 minutes. That's all I got." I wish the show started with the second episode because the
Yeah.
bank robbery scene or the whole episode is built around this concept of Vince going to the bank. He's trying to get a loan, I think, for his business,
Yep.
and the bank is not messing with him. And kind of like this twist and this turn that happens is that the bank robbers know Vince. So they
Yes.
recognize him and they use this moment, and it's really funny. But they use this moment to catch up with him. So they're like, "Oh, how's your mom? And how's this and how's that?" And just like how, number one, how just every day of an experience, like you're going to the bank to get something.
Mm-hmm.
We've all done that. But then for this outlandish thing to happen, that isn't for Black people, is not that outlandish. It's not that
Yeah.
crazy. And so I feel like the creators of this show really hit the mark with the tone, with the comedy. Like this show, I'm excited for more people to discover this show the longer that it's on Netflix because hopefully it's going to be around for a minute.
And I think it's interesting because I was watching a lot of his documentary. Like so my exposure to Vince Staples primarily came about through this show. Like I know of his music, but I haven't been a fan. But it made me go back and listen to Ramona Park Saved My Life or Broke My Heart, whatever it's called.
Ramona Park broke my heart.
There you go. Yeah. I've only listened to it twice, but I like it. But I went back and listened to his music. But something that was interesting in a lot of the interviews that he talked about, he was like, "This is not about me being a rapper. Like the show, yes, I am a rapper and the show is about me." But he's like, if you notice, we never in the studio. We never write no music. We never talking to no producers. Only time we really talk about my music is when somebody else recognizes me. And that's it. And I was like, I think that's what's interesting because Dave Atlanta, rap shit, and this show. Well, I would say Dave Atlanta and rap shit all have the same log line and the execution is very different. And I would argue that only 2 of those 3 shows are actually about somebody's like rap career, whereas Atlanta starts that, but does other stuff. Like that's not what it's about at all, really. And I think that the Vince Staples show is similar in that like able to use your music career to get something told, very smart. And then when you get there, it's not really about that. Which I love. I think the show is great. It is one of my, definitely like when I do my year-end list, it'll probably be in that top 10 because it was really good, really strong. I liked it. It's funny because you said the writers or people involved with it were a part of Intergalactic, which makes sense because those writers, along with Kenya Barris, who produced both Intergalactic and this, they love these 90-minute, 5-episode whoop-de-whoops.
Yeah.
And
when you think about it, it is a smart style. Like people need short form content. And so we're still getting stories out of it. But it's like, if you want to watch this in one sitting, you can. If you want to watch it in like 20 to 30-minute chunks, you can. And those chunks still have great storytelling. So they kind of
I agree. I think I'm glad I watched this because I did not like Intergalactic. So I'm glad that I liked this one. My obsession right now, and we're not going to do too much on this episode because we're going to talk about it next week. But my obsession right now is the Jerrod Carmichael Reality Show. This is I would argue this is the most polarizing show on television right now. Like this show is absolutely bonkers. I can't decide if Jerrod is like radically vulnerable or an asshole. Like I can't
Right.
decide. But for those of y'all who don't know, it's a docu-series which follows Jerrod Carmichael starting in the months after he releases his special Rothaniel. And it goes through, I think, maybe a year or two. They don't really tell us exactly what the timeline is, but like it's ongoing in a sense. And it's a deeply personal look at his thoughts on sex, love, parental relationships, and his identity as a Black gay man. And when I say like deeply personal, I mean like it's bordering voyeuristic. It borders intrusion. Like there are moments when you're watching it, like the very first episode, I was like, "Oh, I'm hooked on this," but this is the most uncomfortable thing I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah, and
Like
we have too many details about his life. Like, why do I now know that you like sucking toes? I texted Galen. I texted Galen yesterday when I watched the pilot, and I said, "Sucking toes."
sucking toes is insane, but that's what he does, and it's like there's so many moments where he says that for him the show is like a form of therapy. And so there are a lot of moments where he is sharing things in ways that I personally might not share publicly. But it's interesting because in doing his own version of therapy and doing his work, he also sets up the people in his life for ridicule in ways that I don't think that he has fully processed. I don't know what episode you're on, so I don't want to like do too much.
Well, I want to hear a little bit, but we also going to talk about it next week.
But
But I will.
we can talk about but like the whole Tyler the Creator situation.
Oh
Because I
yes,
think that's a good example. Because that's episode 1. So if y'all haven't seen it and you haven't seen the clips, I don't know where you are because them clips were everywhere for a while. But basically, Jerrod Carmichael and Tyler the Creator are friends, and Jerrod Carmichael discovered that he has feelings for him. If you listened to Call Me If You Get Lost, I now, with all of this information, am inferring that some of those songs were about Jerrod. That's all I'm going to say there. I'm inferring that based on what we now know. Go back and listen. You'll hear what I'm saying.
I got to do that. I'm
curious. But he has a moment. So he tells Tyler the Creator that he's in love with him or has feelings for him. Tyler the Creator is like, haha, you stupid little biatch. And then they don't
with a straight face.
With a straight face. And they basically don't speak for a year. And then Jerrod invites Tyler the Creator to be on the show and basically tells him he has feelings for him again. And Tyler's response is the same, which is, I don't like you like that, bro. Like,
which is the most I'm standing on business example ever.
It was so standing on business, but it was so awkward and uncomfortable, like watching like Tyler Creator orders this whole meal and he's like munching and slurping down. He gets up to fart in the middle of the conversation. Like he is taking it so unseriously, and Jerrod is like, and you're just watching it like
it's literally like uncomfortable. Like
it's so wild. It just makes me uncomfortable. We'll talk more about it next week when Ayana has seen more. I don't know. I think there might be a couple more episodes coming out, but there's like 8 of them out now. It's on HBO Max. Watch this show because I think there is so much conversation to be had around like how trauma impacts people in their adulthood. Where is the line between like getting accountability from another person and then like harming them back? There are so many conversations. I really want to talk about episodes 3, 4, and 8 are episodes that I really want to talk about when we've seen it and when you've seen the whole thing, because those episodes for me are like super meaty. For those of y'all who want to know, yes, we do address Jerrod's preference for white men. We do address that in the show.
Galen, maybe like 20 minutes into the first episode, I said, are we going to address this in this show? Or
we do address it in the second episode. They address it a lot. And in the 6th episode, which was a boring episode, honestly, but they address it again there. But Jerrod is an interesting man. I still love Rothaniel. I think it's a great special.
It is amazing. Work. It's one of the best specials I've seen ever.
It has become my favorite. And it dethroned my previous favorite, which was Chris Rock's Tambourine. I like the quieter specials. I'm somebody who likes the storytelling, the quieter. Like, I don't need all that. All right. Like, I love that. Don't get me wrong. That was no shade at Kevin Hart because I love Kevin Hart in that moment. But, like, those are different styles of comedy. And I think for me, spoiler alert, guys, I'm taking a comedy class next month. So we'll talk about it later. But I feel like I like the storytelling, the quieter, the
I
political
agree.
commentary of it all. That's like
Sometimes it hits
more about
harder.
talking to people.
Mm-hmm. It
So I
hits
think
harder.
sometimes stand up can be like, I am performing, woo, versus like, nah, like I'm just gonna tell you some funny stuff that's going on in my life, and you
Mm-hmm.
gonna giggle because we hear the giggle.
And it's funny, exactly.
Right. But we'll talk about it more next week because it's the jam for me.
Yeah. All
All right,
right.
what's our next show, Ayana?
Next up, we have a personal favorite, a new TV show that premiered this year, I want to say in March, on
Yeah.
BET Plus. This show is called Diarra from Detroit. It was created by a Black woman named Diarra Kilpatrick. She is from Detroit, as the show, the title implies.
What if she was actually from like Kalamazoo, Michigan? Like,
Imagine. Imagine. This show is a scripted hour-long show, so it falls into the drama category, but it's also like a mystery with comedic. There are a lot of comedic moments in this show, so it kind of has that hybrid feel to it.
mhm.
But here's the concept logline. Diarra from Detroit follows a divorcing school teacher who refuses to believe she's been ghosted by her rebound Tinder date. Her search for the missing man pulls her into a decades-long mystery involving the Detroit underworld. As the case unfolds, her coworkers, her friends, and lovers become unlikely allies as she falls down a dangerous rabbit hole.
Mhm.
This show to me is so good, y'all. If you love like the true crime world, if you love dramas, especially Black dramas, I feel like this show does a great job at bridging that gap. True crime, we've been seeing a lot of that in film and TV, and like over the last 2 or 3 years because it's a trend. Like everybody loves these true crime podcasts, these true crime stories. And so here we have a fictional show that is building true crime into the story itself, which is really
Mhm.
cool. DR from Detroit also has a really cool cast,
Yeah.
honestly, a knockout cast. Besides DR Kilpatrick herself, great actress, we have Morris Chestnut, we have Felicia Rashad, we have Dominique Perry, who played Tasha in Insecure. We were talking about her last week because she
Love her
also
down.
love her down. She's in Bust Down on Peacock as well, so she's booked and busy. And then we also have Claudia Logan, who plays Moni, who is Diarra's best friend in the show. She was also on, I think, Harlem. She played in Harlem at some point
Really?
as well.
You're
Um,
right.
She's a great actress. I think a lot of the scenes that she's in, she just has this presence. You can't look away from her. But the
Mhm.
show is stacked. A lot of great new actors as well as like legendary classic actors.
Yeah.
The show, like I said, the concept itself takes place in Detroit, but I noticed that it was shot in Jersey. I'm pretty sure it was shot in my hometown of Newark
Why would they shoot it in Jersey?
because Newark looks like Detroit. That's why.
I feel like if you're gonna shoot a show and if you're gonna call it, I don't know. I feel like Detroit is one of them cities where they don't play about their representation. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
surprised you're gonna do it.
I'm sure. I think the show makes up for that in a lot of other aspects, like the dialogue, the things that the characters wear, the things that they do. But logistically, from a production standpoint, they probably filmed in Jersey because it's cheaper too. Like when you film in Jersey, you get a lot of tax
That's true.
credits and tax
I feel
breaks.
like Detroit would also be one of those cities because of how much it's rebuilding and is in need of like the economic.
I'm sure it'll become that, but
Yeah.
Jersey had like over the last few years, so many shows and movies have been shot in Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm guessing because of the incentives you get.
It's so
But yeah,
interesting.
for me, I didn't care because I'm like, I'm from Newark. Like, this is my city. And I
She
think they
said,
were
Newark, it's me.
exactly. I think it was filmed in Newark and surrounding cities because there were definitely places like there's this one scene I think in the first episode they're walking past a bus stop and I'm
Mhm.
like, no, this is definitely the bus stop that is by the Easy Pickens and the rainbows across the street, and it's how we get to my grandmother's house.
I'm
So I'm like,
screaming. I
I
honestly
really
call her a fraud.
not even no, not even a fraud. I say y'all real for putting me on. Thank you. But back to the show, the concept itself has so many twists and turns. Like the log line said and described, we have Diarra who is she literally falls into this true crime story. In the show, back in 1995, this boy named Deontay Brooks goes missing, and it's this huge thing. Everybody in Detroit is talking about it. And in the present day, we have Diarra, who is about to get divorced from her husband, who's played by Morris Chestnut. So she gets back onto these dating apps and she's trying to find a rebound. And essentially, without giving out any spoilers, her in all of this you can find out in the pilot episode. But her rebound, essentially, she believes is this missing boy, Deontay Brooks,
Mm-hmm.
from 1995. And so at the end of the pilot, she's ghosted by this man. She's ghosted by this man that she goes on a date with, and she starts putting pieces together. And she's telling her friends, like, y'all, I went on this amazing date, this perfect date with this guy, but now he's ghosting me, and I think he was kidnapped. And so, and
Hilarious.
she's telling her friends this, and they're looking at her like she's crazy. Like,
Not only is she
girl,
telling her friends, she's telling her student. I want to
she's
put
telling
that out there. That little girl, what was her name? Diarra.
I can't remember what the girl's her student's name
Something.
was.
She was braiding that baby hair, and the baby said, he ghosted you, Miss
Who ghosted
Barrington.
you? And as
I fell out.
ridiculous as it sounds, this show is built on the fact that this guy that she went on a date with may be this boy that was kidnapped or went missing all those years ago. And so we kind of see Diarra going on this whole investigative journey. She's a teacher, but she essentially becomes an investigator or this detective, and she's trying to figure out, who is this man? Why did he ghost me? And so eventually we learn something is up. He didn't just ghost you. Like, this man is somehow involved in the underworld.
Wait, don't give too much. I only watched
I'm not
episode
gonna give
one.
out too much, but it's very clear, like from the trailer, also from the pilot, that like this man is somehow involved in the criminal underworld of Detroit, and it's Diarra's goal over the course of the season to figure out who he is. Is he this missing boy from 1995,
Mm-hmm.
and what is currently happening for him to be missing, quote unquote, again?
Yeah.
So, recommend that y'all watch the show. Sade Joseph, who she worked a lot on Rap Shit. She directed a couple of those episodes, and she also directed episode 5 and episode 6 of Diarra from Detroit. And I'm just calling her out as one of the show's directors because she took some creative liberties, especially in episode 6, which I think is called Fishbones, where we see like these film noir elements pop up in the episode, and we hadn't seen that in any other episode in the show. And it fits so perfectly with that episode, like going back into the past and then seeing the characters in the present day. It was just a beautifully well done episode.
Yeah.
And it was also, the last thing I'll say about this show is that it was also kind of meta, because in the show, Deontay Brooks, he goes missing in 1995 on the day of the OJ verdict. And then this show comes out in 2024, episode 6. So episode 6 was all about going back into the past and reliving Deontay Brooks going missing. So we're trying to figure out what really happened. And it's the day of the OJ trial, which is why all the characters remember this day so vividly. This episode in real life came out on April 11th. OJ died the day before on April 10th.
That's
And
why.
so it was just like this meta moment for me where I'm like, is anybody else watching at the same time I'm watching? Like, that's something that you don't plan. You can't plan
Yeah.
that. It happens.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this synchronicity is crazy. It's crazy.
It's a while. It's funny. I have a couple of friends who auditioned for this show.
Mm-hmm.
Did not book it, I don't think. But so I've kind of had read scenes from the show already, which was interesting. But then I feel like this show, what was that show within a show on Insecure with the missing girl?
I know you're talking
SZA
about.
played her, SZA played the girl, and
Mm-hmm.
because this show very much feels like that show.
Yeah.
Like, you could have told me this was the show within a show on Insecure, and I'd believe you, because it feels like that. I only watched the first episode. I'm interested to see more of it. I can't tell if I like it or not yet. I
Keep
felt like the
going.
first episode was a little slow.
Keep
Not gonna
going.
lie.
Keep going. The way they build out the world of Detroit in the journeys that the characters go on, we see them grow so clearly. But I don't know, it blew my mind with how much detail went into this show, into the storylines. How many, because it's a mystery. Like, you need to put out hints. Like, is it this? Is this person, did this person do it? Or did this person do it? Is this the story that really happened? And so over the course of, I want to say 8 episodes, we're seeing all these things play out. And so many of those hints happen kind of like in real time, like things that like, oh, I should have caught that, but you don't know that you should have caught it until it actually happens. So definitely keep going, because I'm interested to see what you think if you make it to the end.
You know, I think I'll make it to the end. I got my little free trial on BT Plus, so I'm gonna finish it this week.
Okay, I'm about to say, you got 7 days. They do not play.
They do not play.
And BET, let me look into the camera. BET Plus, BET Studios, do not cancel this show. Do not cancel this show.
I thought it was a miniseries.
No, the way it ends, we
Oh.
need to know what happens. It's a great ending. Like
Oh.
season one is a nice complete arc, but it sets you up perfectly for season 2. And
Okay.
I need to see where these characters go and what happens next. I need to see what the mystery storyline is going to be of season 2, because it's going to be a continuation of what happens without giving anything away.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to see it. So BET Studios, if you're watching, I don't think I'll be able to forgive you if this show is not back on the airwaves in about 9 to 12 months. So
we know BET love canceling on the cliffhanger, child.
I know.
That's their favorite
don't.
activity.
Please don't. I can't.
I'm still mad about Baldwin Hills.
That too.
Mind you, I wasn't even watching Baldwin Hills live when it came out because I was, 4? But I'm still mad about it. I'm still mad about it. Yeah, I thought it was, the whole time I thought it was a limited series. So I'm excited that it's not.
Yeah.
My second show is also somewhat a mystery, but it is Palm Royale on Apple TV Plus. First of all, if you're not tapped into Apple TV Plus, you are missing some of the best television that is currently out. They refuse to market them shows.
They just choose not to.
I don't know what it is about Apple. They said, we Apple, you know where we at.
They said we too good to market to y'all.
But they have some of the best TV shows. I mean, Swagger, The Morning Show, Central Park. Like, they have a lot of really good shows. So I highly suggest tapping into those. But Palm Royale, I describe it if Bridgerton were set in Florida in the 1960s. That's what this show is. But the log line is: an ambitious woman schemes to secure her seat at America's most exclusive table, Palm Beach High Society, circa 1969. The show follows this girl named Maxine. Maxine kind of, the way she pops into the world is funny, and I don't want to spoil that because I think that moment in the pilot is great. But she pops into this world. Her husband has some ties to the world. We kind of find out that he is related to a famous family in the area, but he kind of, has diverted his life paths. And so she is obsessed with trying to make it in high society. And she's really interested in impressing these like older, wealthier women who don't really want anything to do with her. Like, she is what would be considered like white trash. She's like, I think she's from like Mississippi or somewhere like that.
Very much an outcast.
Very much an outcast, very much like a lower class white woman compared to the rest of these, richer white women. And it is all about her like scheming and borrowing from Peter and robbing Paul to try and put on appearances and airs. But it has the funniest women on television right now. Kristen Wiig, who plays Maxine. You have Allison Janney, who plays her like nemesis on the show, Evelyn, who is fantastic. She's fantastic in the show. Carol Burnett, the legendary icon Carol Burnett, is in this show. And for the first 4 episodes, she's in a coma. Okay? And she's still funny.
So in a coma. Coma? Spoil it for me real quick.
You said what?
Does she come out the coma?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I've only watched the pilot.
Yeah, no, she comes out of it, but like, to what extent is she helpful?
Right.
That's where, because it goes that way.
Yeah.
Ricky Martin's in it. Like, it has a really fantastic cast because there's like the storyline of obviously Maxine and her trying to put on appearances. There's the storyline of like the club social hierarchy and those interactions. But then there's like, who is Carol Burnett's character is Norma. And Norma basically, if Norma didn't mess with you, it wasn't good for you. And there's a lot of kind of similar to like how there's like the Detroit underworld in Diarra from Detroit. There's sort of this like wealthy underground secret keeping network, and that's how the order is the order is basically kept through Norma, because Norma has information that can blackmail any and everybody, and so everybody acts right because Norma could ruin you, and they all know it. And a big part of the show is like, well, if Norma is sick and or dying, like, how do we move on? I think it's fantastic. I think it's funny. I am a few episodes behind, so I need to catch up, but it's really, really good. It's based on a book called Mr. and Mrs. America, and I don't remember the author right now, but like everything, it's based on something that was already written, but apparently the book is very, very different from the show. So I'm going to watch the show, finish it, and then at some point this summer, I'm going to read the book and report back. But apparently they are very, very different, and I'm excited about it.
Cool. I watched the pilot yesterday when we were prepping for the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like it, question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I need to, because this is my toxic trait as a consumer of TV. You got to get me. If you don't get me in that first episode, I'm out.
I will
But
say, I think what helped me was when I started it, the first 4 episodes were out. And I
okay,
watched them.
back to back.
Yeah, I want to say I watched the first maybe 3 in one sitting and then
Yeah.
came back and watched the fourth. I think the first 4 episodes, really, really strong, really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
That 5th episode is kind of weak.
Little shaky.
The 6th one is better. And I think
Okay.
that might be the last one I've watched. I think there's 9 episodes out
Mhm.
already, or 10, something like that. Because Apple TV usually does 10 episodes. They
Right.
do 8 or 10, pretty
Yeah.
short, somewhere
I'm
in
gonna
there.
give it another chance. I need to watch the second episode. The first episode, if there was a lot happening, but in terms of like progressing the storyline, it was more character building to me than
Yeah.
like this is happening. Like we got the twists and turns, and I was waiting for those twists and turns because I'm like, why do I
And
feel like there's sort of like a small thriller or like mystery element to this? And I saw it start to come in
you
literally
see
the last
pieces.
frame of the pilot, but I'm like, where was this for the past 50 minutes?
It's that kind of a show. I will say, I think that
Yeah,
I will agree with you that the first episode helps you understand these people so clearly that when
yeah,
you watch the rest of it,
it
you
makes sense.
see the layers and the
Okay.
details. I think if they had started with episode 2,
Hmm.
you wouldn't.
Yeah, it definitely posed more questions than they answered. But I'm gonna go back to episode 2 because I know those answers are coming. But sometimes I'm a little
Yeah.
impatient. Like,
No, I get it. It definitely makes sense. But I think, yeah, episode 2 for me is like where the story begins. Episode
yeah,
1 for me, just like Maxine is just hilarious to me. Something about this like white girl who is like country,
yeah, but trying
backwoods,
not to be.
and doesn't care. Like she doesn't care in the sense of like she wants to be upper class, but she
Hmm.
is so unabashedly unashamed about what she wants, and like she's just honest. She's like,
Yeah,
oh my God, I read about you in the shiny sheet, and I saw
right.
that you did this, and I want to be like you. Like,
Yeah,
and she doesn't have a filter about like she's not embarrassed about wanting to be accepted in this world and wanting to learn. And I think that
yeah,
is very interesting to me,
it is.
especially in comparison to like a Bridgerton, where like everyone
Mhm.
on that show for the most part, except for in season 3, and I won't spoil that for people who haven't gotten there yet. But there is like the sense of you were raised to be in this society,
And you know
and
how
you're
to
trying to
act.
figure out how you it's like it's in you to be raised this way, but you're trying to figure out your relationship to it. Whereas in her
Exactly.
case, she has always aspired to this class, and
Mhm.
now she's close enough that she can finesse it if she does it correctly. And it's about like
Right.
that social climbing of it all, which I think is very
Yeah,
fun.
it is cool.
I love the show.
Right.
It's my jam.
I'm gonna tap back in, but let's do a quick recap of the shows we picked. My 2 shows that I picked for today's episode are the Vince Staples Show, which you can watch on Netflix,
Mhm.
and then also Diarra from Detroit, which you can find on BET Plus. I watched it through the BET Plus add-on on Prime TV
Yes.
or Prime Video, whatever they call
Prime,
it.
prime.
Prime.
We don't know. And
And
then
then what were your shows?
so I watched the Jerrod Carmichael Reality Show, and that you can find on HBO Max, and then Palm Royale on Apple TV Plus, and it's a jam.
Yes, and we'll be back next week, probably to dive deeper into the Jerrod Carmichael Show.
Yeah.
So stay
We'll
tuned
talk
for that.
about that one, and then I'll probably have finished Diarra from Detroit, and so we could do that like the next week. So the
Yes.
next 2 episodes, we probably just going to be talking about those shows. So
Mhm.
look, y'all, it's Friday, May 24th.
Fourth,
When y'all hearing this, I think y'all, it's not Friday when we're recording this, y'all.
right?
So Friday, May 24th, you got a week to get into Jerrod, and you got 2 weeks to get into Diarra.
Okay, and do the free trial. Do the 1 week free trial.
Do
on
the free
Prime
trial.
to
If you
watch
have
Jerrod.
AT&T, you do have HBO Max included in your bill.
Period.
Log in, check that out.
AT&T.
Also, before we go, I just want to shout out Studio Theater, but most specifically My Fat Ham cast and crew. This past Monday, we had the Helen Hayes Awards, which are basically like a regional Tony for the DC, Maryland, Virginia theater scene. And we were nominated for like 7 awards.
Let's get it.
We didn't win none of them, but I would just like to say we were nominated. A lot of people were nominated. What did Jay-Z say? Some of y'all wasn't even in the category.
Yeah,
Okay.
they shouldn't have been, but y'all should have been, and you were. So congrats to y'all.
And I just want to shout out us. I think, we did an amazing job. We were the second We were the, what did we say? No, we raised, our show bought in the second largest amount in ticket sales in that theater's history.
That's
we were
crazy.
extended for 6 extra weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We did 79 shows, which in regional theater is not a thing. You usually do 40. And so I'm just very proud of us. It was also so good to see everybody. Auntie Tanisha, I know you was in rehearsal, so we didn't get to see you, girl, but we miss you. We love you. But I got to see my castmates. I got to see my director. And I'm just really, really happy. But I just wanted to shout us out. And also shout out my girl Joey at the Golden Nug Pro. She did my makeup and she ate that. I'm going to post the pictures probably by the time y'all seeing and hearing this. The pictures.
We're going to insert the pictures into the episode.
We'll insert those into the episode in case they're not on Instagram yet. But she ate my face. If you're in the DMV, go to Joey, okay?
Period.
And with that, we are at the end of another episode of the No Sleep Till Hollywood podcast. Make sure you guys follow us at No Sleep Till Hollywood on Instagram. And of course, you can follow me at GSmitty with 2 T's and 4 Y's on anything with an @ symbol.
And you can follow me at Ayana Costley on Instagram and on TikTok at Ayana Online. That's our episode. We deep into season 3, y'all. We here. This is episode 3. We're going to go to 4 and then 5 and then 6, and we're going to keep going. So stay tuned for more.
And until next time, good night, good morning, bonjour, bonsoir, good afternoon. Bye, guys. Bye.